All right, you clicked on the video, so you know what it's about. What aperture should you be using when you're taking photos? Now, I'm not going to be talking about landscape photography or macro photography really in this video. It's mostly about taking photos of people. Now, when I take photos of people, I shoot anywhere from f1.2 up to like f16, which is a very wide range. I'm going to try and clarify where I use what aperture. If I'm taking a photo of one person, I'll generally use an aperture anywhere from f1.2 to f2.8 at most focal lengths that I use. If I'm taking a photo of two people, I'll probably shoot at an aperture anywhere from f1.8 to about f4. And the more people you add, the narrower your aperture should be to ensure that everybody's faces are in focus. But sometimes, say if I'm taking a photo of a group and I can get all of their eyes on the exact same focal plane, I might actually be shooting a little bit wider than you would typically think. The reason you wouldn't typically have a really wide aperture if you're shooting a group of people or just a couple of people is because you don't want people's faces to start being out of focus. This usually comes into play when you have a group photo, say at a wedding and there's a couple rows of people. So you might have like the bride and groom at the front and then their family and friends and then cousins, and it might be like 8 people deep and there might be 20, 30, 40 people in the photo. If I was taking a photo of that, I definitely wouldn't be using f1.2 or 1.8. If I was taking a photo of a group like this, I would be at like f11, f16 minimum, because if you're at say f2.8 and there's a group of 20 or 30 people all in a big pile, the people in the front are going to have their faces nice and in focus, and the further back in the rows that you get, you're going to start getting really fuzzy faces, and you might not see it on your camera display or through your viewfinder, but when you load these photos into editing software, you'll zoom in to try and maybe do some editing and you'll see the fuzzy, blurry, out of focus faces. And it's going to be much harder to refocus those faces after you've taken the photo than it would be just to shoot at a better or more suitable aperture at the time, in camera. As always, try and get it right in camera before you then go to edit. Sometimes though, I will actually shoot a couple of people at a very wide aperture, a lot wider than you normally would. And that's if I'm chasing that foreground to background to subject separation, and I will only really do this if I'm standing quite far away from the subject. So if I'm maybe 20, 30 meters away. For example, this was from a family shoot where I was standing maybe 15, 20 meters away and I wanted to get that nice dreamy out of focus background. And this is an example when I was at a beach with some models and I wanted to sort of take almost a landscape shot, but where the subject was the main subject of the photo. It's in these instances where I think it's okay to have a very, very wide aperture. But as soon as you get to a certain distance, maybe like 10, 5 meters away from someone, you start to lose a lot of sharpness and a lot of detail in your images if you're shooting at too wide of an aperture. And always remember that it's much better to have more in focus than what you need than not enough of your photo in focus. See you in the next one.